Let's get corrupted. What up, YouTube? It's your boy Joe with Meteoric Serpents coming back at you for another episode of the Colubrid Corruption Podcast. Guys, this week's episode is a little bit different. This is a pre recorded episode, and we do not have a guest this week. It's going to be a solo episode. And for episode number 13, really kind of me just going on, I don't want to call it a rant, but just talking a little bit, having a conversation. And I really want some good chat interaction in the comments, not the actual live chat. You could watch this live, no problem. But if you're going to make comments or talk about this with me, please do so in the actual comments so that other people can see it. Because this isn't a live panel discussion or whatnot. But for this week's episode, we are talking about the ethics of hybridization in colubrids. And we're doing just Colubrids specifically today. But before we get started, guys, typical stuff. All my social media is down below. Follow me on Instagram. Always mess that up. Follow me on Instagram. That's where everything is. Hit that like and subscribe button. We're on YouTube, so make sure you go do that. Right down below. Then Morph Market, I do have some animals available, and Facebook gets all of my Instagram content on there. And then, yeah, guys, as I always say, I have Meteoric Serpents t-shirts available. They got some stuff on the back. Oh, there it is. With the Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. There you go. So if you're interested in one of those, I have a bunch of sizes. Just let me know, and we could work something out there. And as usual, I've been talking about Blake's Exotic Feeders. Really good stuff. Quail for your colubrids, just an overall balanced diet, very healthy for them. So I've been plugging it and promoting it because it's been great for the rat snakes so far. But guys, without further ado, let's kind of get into it today. I'm going to keep this relatively short. Definitely not going to go on a huge long rant for, the typical 2-hour episodes. Probably just a little bit today. I kind of gave myself an overview, what I wanted to talk about, just some topics, and I'm going to present my opinions about them, and you guys can do with that what you'd like. So let's see. Today, first topic I wanted to talk about was taxonomy, because taxonomy in itself is controversial. If you're in the hobby and you know about a lot of these colubrids, you'll know that some of them have been renamed over the years. Certain species have been separated, certain ones lumped together. So that's one whole big debacle of what's going on. And in particular, and I talk about it quite often with the North American rat snakes, all of the snakes that come from the East Coast, all the rat snakes that are not corn snakes have been grouped into Pantherophis alleghaniensis. So black rats, gray rats, and yellow are all the same species there. So, one could say that there's nothing wrong with hybridizing them because they're the same species taxonomically. And to that, they technically wouldn't be incorrect. However, my views about it is that they were always lumped separately for so long. They all have strikingly different characteristics and phenotypes and whatnot. And they come from all different locations. Yes, there's probably some overlap in certain spots, but in general, they're all different locations. So it makes it a little bit hard to justify, let's make these black rat, yellow rat hybrids. I don't know. That's how I feel about it. And, just overall, my thought process I'm not too keen on hybridization. Some people are, and that's fine. That's okay. You can do what you want. My overall opinion is that if you are doing that, everything should be labeled accordingly. So I kind of just want to put that disclosure out there before it gets lost in translation with what I say. But yeah, keeping on about taxonomy. A lot of times subspecies, like I said, yes, sometimes habitats will overlap and there will be natural intergrades. And, that is what it is. They do it in the wild. So maybe it's not the worst thing in the world if it happens in captivity. Should we be doing it purposely? I don't know. Some of these snakes are a little more common in captivity, and you can see what happens when you put two together because sometimes people want to see the hybrid outcome, but I don't know. I think selling them is a tough ethical question because it's like, well, do you label them as that? And then if you label it as that and you label it appropriately, I think you're okay. And you tell the person that's buying, hey, this is what it is. This is what I did, and this is what it is. And if they're still okay with buying it, no problem. That seller is okay in my book. I'm totally cool with that. The next problem I have is when that buyer now takes that hybrid, breeds it to one of the two hybrids, let's say a black rat and a yellow rat, for instance, and then we'll take the hybrid and breed it back to a black rat. And now they're like, well, it's 75% black rat, so I'm just going to label them as black rat snake. And then it's like, well, what's going on there? Because it's not true. And now the bloodlines are all muddied up. So that's kind of where I stand about taxonomy. And then, so obviously the Pantherophis, the Obsoletas, they were all the different subspecies of Obsoleta. So, you were crossbreeding those. And again, I mentioned the geographic overlap, but then you get into something like another species that I keep, the bamboo rat snakes, Porphyracia. Those are ones I feel a little almost stronger about hybridizing. One, yes, there is a decent amount of these animals in the hobby, but it's still not crazy. I know for a very long time, the coxeye, which is one of the subspecies I keep, the coxeye, the entire captive population started off of, I believe it was four individuals, maybe five or six. I could be wrong there, but it was a very, very small group. So the bloodlines are, very limited as is. And now when you throw this other equation of crossbreeding the subspecies of Porphyracia, then it's like, well, what are we doing to those bloodlines? Like we have to do things to preserve some of these species in captivity. Because if we move to everyone just going off the rails and crossbreeding everything, then we lose all these bloodlines, which is like such an important part of the hobby. It makes it one of the more interesting like scientific things is like keeping these bloodlines alive. It's conservation. It's what zoos do. That's why zoos breed animals, is to conserve their population in the world. So yeah, it's a tough subject overall, and I'm definitely not a fan of the Porphyracia crossbreeding. They're also from different geographic locations. Like I have the coxeye and the violenti, so dealing with one snake from Thailand, Thailand, and then the other one is from China. It's like two different countries. Is why would I want to breed those together? It's just not, that's not even natural. So I'm not a fan of that personally. Um, let's see here. Then there's one thing I've became aware of as of recent, because honestly, I didn't realize, I was a little bit ignorant to it because I don't keep corn snakes myself. Um, I've heard recently that some morphs in the corn snake world have come from other North American rat snakes, which I don't quite know how I feel about that. It's interesting. Like I believe I saw it was the root beer corn, and like which is also part of like creamsicle, came from emery. So that's an interesting one. And again, I'm not sure how I feel about it because the morph in itself, naming it that morph, tells you that it's hybridized because like you labeled a root beer corn as it's a corn emery. Bringing new morphs in is cool. It having new morphs in any species is always cool, and it's something interesting and different. But at the cost of muddying up the bloodlines, now you're throwing emery into all these different corn snakes, and then yeah, as little, if you keep breeding, you can get that percentage as low as you like, but you do so with knowing that, that corn snake is still not pure Gutatis. I don't know. It's tough. And again, I don't keep corn snakes personally, so it's hard for me to give a stronger opinion about it, or be right about it. I'm interested to hear what other corn snake breeders have to say. That's why I said, please feel free to drop some comments below. I kind of want to see some good discussion without yelling at each other, because that's not cool. We should remain united as a reptile community. It shouldn't be really an argument. I think an educated discussion is much, much better. It happens in some of the Facebook groups I'm in. The Texas Rat Facebook group, I got enlightened to some new information about morphs that used to exist and bloodlines and stuff that have just kind of died off, which is quite unfortunate. But I'm glad there's a group of people in that group that can kind of educate about that history, as with me being someone who's like new school into the game, and working with the morphs that are available right now. So I don't know, it's cool to see. But I think conversations like this are good as long as it doesn't lead to argument. I think everyone should be educated. I think everyone should be allowed to give their own opinions, because, like, converging discourse, like, it's part of life. You have to get through it, but also speaking with other people allows yourself to open up to a new opinion that maybe you couldn't process yourself, or something you may have never thought of, and you'll be like, oh, hey, I agree with that. So um just constantly beefing in the reptile hobby, I just don't think that's helpful for anyone on any side. But yeah, we'll move on. Next kind of topic I wanted to talk about was, yeah, again, staying with the North American rat snakes, kind of the Texas Everglades black rats, the bubblegum rat snakes. Those I'm not a fan of, um, at all, especially because of that labeling. Them being labeled that bubblegum rat snake uh, bothers me the most, because what you're saying is, and someone may not be aware of that. Um, Putting that name bubblegum is an immediate red flag to me. Anytime I see a bubblegum rat snake at the show, I turn around and I walk away, because what it's telling you is that it's a hybrid between some of those different, subspecies or locales, whatever you want to call them. Um, you know, and then it just takes away from it, because then someone will turn around and go take that bubblegum rat snake and breed it to a black rat snake or a Texas. And a lot of times I feel like sellers are not honest when they have bubblegum rat snakes. Um, and they'll just sell it and probably call it one or the other, or they'll just call it a rat snake. And then you have those buyers going into every rat snake Facebook group and saying, hey, I just bought this bubblegum rat snake. What species is it? And then, we have no idea, because you bought a bubblegum rat snake. So that's kind of where I stand on that. And I've seen quite a lot of them, and honestly, it's not that striking compared to other rat snakes. Like, you can get some beautiful albino black rat snakes, you could get some beautiful Everglades rat snakes, some beautiful Texas on their own. What is the need to combine all of them to make this mutt? I really that's one that gets me. I really just don't know. And plus, with that, all these species are, readily available. What's the need to cross them? It's like you're not doing anything by doing that. Um, because I have a bunch of Texas. There's a bunch of people with a bunch of Texas rat snakes. There's a ton of leucistic available, yeah, but outcross the leucistic, and you could end up with a bunch of normals, and then you could get yourself some albinos and the different morphs, and same with the black and the Everglades. Black rat snakes have a lot of beautiful morphs I'm seeing right now. Like, I'd really be interested in keeping them, but in my opinion, they're just so similar to Texas that I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know if they're for me because it's just again a very similar snake, but there's just there's no point in my opinion to kind of do this with these animals. Yeah, it's hard to really explain it past that. When I originally planned this episode, I wanted to have kind of a panel discussion to make this happen, but scheduling didn't work out. It's all good, and plus I'm pre-recording. I'm actually in New York, so it is what it is. And sorry for the long rant, guys. It's just gonna kind of be like a little rant mini episode this week. We'll be back to the normal routine next week. All right, and then next one, which is technically not hybridization, but it's crossing locales. So I've had multiple guests on my show who are big locality guys with different species. And then I had someone like Jason, just last week talking about how he has crossed the tiger rat snakes just because his animals were doing one of the locality males was doing a lot better breeding than the other locality that he was trying to breed. So that's what he did. I mean, still producing beautiful animals, but um, I don't think there is particularly an issue with taking a locality animal and crossing it to a non-locality or perhaps a different locality. If your goal is like phenotypes, you're taking just like two really good examples and you're like, let's try to work this. We're talking about the same species here, so in my opinion there's nothing ethically wrong with it. However, there is a point to be made that I highly respect the locality breeders because, again, like I had mentioned earlier with like the conservation with like zoos, they are conserving the locality bloodlines here. When we're talking about snakes, that let's say come from Florida. Florida has been being land developed heavily, heavily. They're building so many houses all over. What happens when one day they wipe out an entire locality of, one of these species? Not that I'm saying that's going to happen anytime soon. And honestly, I haven't done any research about it. But what happens when that happens one day? And then the only person who has a specific locality are my two prior guests, Chris Montross and Jake Bratz. It's like, well, then they have a piece of history right there, conserving this bloodline. And now they don't have a lot to work with to preserve it because they're probably limited to a certain amount of individuals. And now you can't find them anymore. But they are doing their work, the Lord's work, if you will, of conserving a piece of history with that. When we're talking about a little bit rarer subspecies to see in the hobby, or sorry, species to see in the hobby, it gets a little bit different. I was talking about last week with Jason Hood, with his tiger rat snakes. Those I don't have as big of a problem with just because they are so rare in the hobby. And I don't know if they are rare, but there's definitely not a lot of people working with them hard the way he is. Um, so I can't imagine that he won't expand his projects and bring in some more animals to a point where um he could do some more work with them, locality wise. And again, the animals he produced were amazing. He hit those uh, true Mexicanus, the subspecies. Sorry, not the subspecies. The localities lost in my head, but either way, amazing animals. But yeah, guys, that's kind of where I stand with that. I'm kind of in the middle on that topic with the locality stuff. So yeah, moving on. Oh, I already touched on it. I actually wrote a note about the Porphyricia. But yeah, and just trying to think of some others off the top of my head, it's not striking. But the Porfs were my best example for that. I mean, crossing they are different locales, but different country locales. They are the same species, but then you just kind of get this mutt, and it's like all four of those subspecies have their own unique individual traits. If they were close, in look, I would say maybe maybe it's okay, but they're not. They're just so different, all these different things, and then when you combine them, you're just like it's a guess of what they're gonna make, so I don't really know. That one's it's I'm just not a fan of it. Um, and then yeah, guys, my next topic, which is one I'm very, very strong and adamant about, are the corn king milk snakes. That's gotta be one of my biggest dislikes in the hobby. Um, it's just like, why? What is the point of making a 50% corn snake, 25% California king snake, and a 25% Honduran milk snake? It's just okay, you did it. You didn't have your king snake eat one of the others. What now? What is the purpose of those animals? Um, because those are just crazy. And then I think I've even seen some with like 4. It's like 3 2 okay, then you go 3 or 4, it's like, for what? For what? Completely different species of animals. I guess kings and milks all Lempripeltis, but still, and then putting it with the corn, you risk, your corn's being eaten by the kings, and it's just weird, and they look wonky. Like, yeah, the patterns are cool, I guess, and they look a bit different, but what's the point? And who wants those? My question is for whoever's buying them. It's like, oh yeah, let me get this cool hybrid. I don't know. Maybe I'm being harsh. I don't mean to victimize anyone. I just don't understand it. It's like we have these cool species. They are their own things. Why do we have to throw 3 or 4 of them at a wall and hope it sticks? So that's where yeah, that's the one I draw the line at. I can't understand that. It's just such different animals being put all together. It makes no sense. Um, let's see. And then yes, as I mentioned kind of before, the not labeling things properly, I think people should, if you're gonna breed hybrids, a lot of the people breeding true hybrids are not, in my opinion, as ethical in the first place. So what makes you think they'll be ethical enough to label them properly? And then what happens is it propagates a future generation or line of people who buy those animals, and then they breed them, and down the road they just keep making muddied animals, and then we lose what we originally had was these species, and then we almost have to start at square one of taking animals back from the wild and stuff like that, because some of these species are so common, and it's like we're kind of just ruining it, muddying it up. So makes it tough. Makes it really, really tough. I thought this would be a bit longer. With a panel, I think it would have opened a lot of really good discussion. But yeah, that's kind of it, guys. A little bit shorter, obviously. But like I said, leave some comments down below because I really want to get all of your opinions about how you feel about this topic. Again, comments, not the live chat. Let's have a good discussion about it. Let's let a bunch of people join and discuss. And maybe I'll make a post on social media to kind of talk about it a little bit. And we could take it from there. But yeah, guys, that was kind of my topic today. I hope you all enjoyed, maybe got something out of it, maybe learned something because maybe you just didn't know this was a thing. As I mentioned at the beginning, all my social media is down below. T-shirts available. Blake's Exotic Feeders for quail. Got some animals on Morph Market. But yeah, guys, as always, this has been the Colubrid Corruption Podcast. This was episode number 13, The Ethics of Hybridization in Colubrids. Hope you all have a great week, and I will most definitely see you all for next week with a guest back to the original stuff. Peace out, guys. Let me know what you think.